We get started into the market mood, I want to talk just a little bit about another topic that came up because the market's starting to make a turn here, and we've actually shifted into a yellow condition. And an interesting topic that came up is this idea of uh, getting back into the saddle. Right, and not just because a market is turning, but things like this can happen too. Like if we are away from the market for any period of time, and while I don't have a formal presentation, I don't have a formal slide deck or anything like that. It's something that I feel that I can speak to quite a bit because during my own journey, I've been knocked off the saddle quite a few times, and there's been things and strategies that I've been able to use to help the recovery time improve from weeks, months, and what used and a couple of times was a couple of years to being almost instantaneous. So um, when we're away from the market and we see it start to come ripping back like this. So, what are some of the things that you feel, or some of the things that you think that you might feel if you've been away from the market for any length of time and you see it starting to make the turn, a turn like this? Well, what do you think you might feel? Go ahead, just shout it out.
Caution.
Caution. That's a good one. Caution. What else?
Like you're stuck on the sidelines almost.
That you're stuck. Well, what do you mean stuck? Like a deer caught in the headlights kind of stuck?
Yeah, pretty much. If you've
Mm,
not been in touch with the market and everything starts to shift, and you're kind of sitting there, kind of stuck, almost watching it.
those are two very good ones. So caution, almost like a deer caught in the headlights. What else? Right alongside that is fear, right? Like a fear of missing out. So we've got caution, fear of missing out, uh, caught a deer caught in the headlights, almost like a paralyzing kind of fear. That's such a good one. That could go in so many different directions too. Like I know I've kind of encountered that where I like out of a routine, and it's like, well, what types of things should I be looking at? I've got a few dozen things that I would be interested in, and this is when I finally had turned the corner in my trading too. There was a while where I was kind of like a centipede with 100 legs, and each of the legs are going in a different direction. But when I finally started to get aligned, and this is when I had finally found IBD and learned about CanSlim, and became an IBD meetup leader. It was still like being away from the market for a period of time, coming back, and then it's like trying to figure out, well, what's the themes and all this, and it's almost like analysis paralysis, like a little too much, trying to figure out too much too fast. Anything else? Any of the thoughts or feelings that you might see? You've been away for a while. You come back. You don't have these markings up here on the chart. Like let's say that you're just starting to see the Nasdaq make the turn, and maybe you take a look at some of the other indexes. Oh wow, look at this. The S&P is just ran up. Well, what is it, up about 10%? just about off the lows, and so are the other ones. And it's like, wow, look at some of these other stocks running. Maybe I looked at my social media, and there's people talking about stocks, or maybe even popped into this group here, and I'm starting to see things. Well, what are some other thoughts that might or feelings, for that matter, that might happen? Maybe a little excitement, right?
Yeah, I think after everything being down for a while, seeing everything kind of make a bit of a turn could be quite exciting.
Yeah, well, like starting to get swept up into the crowd too, uh, and it's quite interesting, and I kind of felt a little bit this way myself too. Just last week, all these years of trading, and now leading a group like this, and I'm not immune from these kind of feelings too. Like I was feeling that way with what was that trade that I had mentioned in the chat room. Let me go over to the short term trend and see what was that one that we were talking about there. AMPH. The chart looked fantastic, right? And the trade actually worked out. There were a lot of things that I liked about it as far as the chart goes. What this trade lacked was the Gauntlet Score that I like to see. I've made it a rule to just for myself. It's not a rule that I would expect anybody else to follow, but I made a rule for myself that I'll only take trades that score a 7 or higher. And this one, it didn't make it. It Despite all the qualities that I liked about this, it scored a 6.7 on the Gauntlet. And I was kind of going back and forth in my head a little bit, and and I was debating like, oh, like should I post this into the chat? Yeah, because part of me is saying, well, you're supposed to be the example, right? Like, you're not supposed to be having these kind of thoughts and struggles anymore. You're supposed to be, the example of what it's like. And then another part of me is saying, well, it's this is reality, and everybody needs to see, like, well, what reality is. Like, there's no, the it doesn't stop, right? The learning doesn't stop, and we need to continuously reinforce things that we've learned. And it's also the power of having a group like this, where we're supporting one another, we're learning together, we're learning a similar mindset, even the similar strategies, even if you're, and when I say strategy, I don't just mean like the technical nuts and bolts of like, oh, I'm going to trade options, or I'm going to day trade, or I'm going to swing trade, or maybe even I'm going to do something a little bit longer term. I'm talking about the nuts and bolts of process, of having a process to come up with rules that are going to guide us, having a process for getting into a flow state, or a certain mindset that's going to keep us on track. So having a discussion like that, and so that's what prompted me to share that in the chat. And it was very kind of Stu to come on and basically say, like, Mike, like, oh, what the heck are you thinking with this? Like, well, what's the point of having rules? If you're going to loosen like this. And so I slept on it, and it's like, yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right. And the worst thing that could have happened would be that I say, you know what? I'm gonna have it just this one time moment. It looks good, and I'm gonna take this trade, and it works out, right? And that's exactly what would have happened here, right? I would have been up about 6% in a day. I would have hit my first scale out, and I'd have my stop to break even, and I'd be pretty happy with myself on that one trade. But what I would have done was I would have opened up a leak in my system, a leak in my mind, and that leak is uh, allowing me to relax on my rules and relax on the things that have gotten me to where I'm at. So it would have worked this one time, but what we want is to have rules and have systems that allow us to work over the longer term. And if we're going to start a habit that is relaxing on our rules, then uh, we're on a slippery slope because while relaxing the rules might work in this instance or that instance, it's something that over the longer term does not work out in the end, and it leads to boom and bust cycles. So not taking this was actually the best thing for me. Not taking this allows me to say, okay, this trade actually worked. What is there something that I could, when I go back and I review my rules, is there something that should be tweaked? Maybe the answer is yes, maybe the answer is no. But is there something that I could add or change or subtract that would have allowed me to take not just this trade in particular, but trades like this? Like, is there something unique about it? And this is how, over time, and it's called our sensory acuity, or that's also part of our RAS, reticular activating system. Maybe you've heard it somewhere else before. Maybe you've heard me talk about it, but it's that part of our brain that when something is important to us, well, we start to see it more frequently. And it's one of the reasons why charts are so important for trading, and training our eye to pick up on these things becomes so important, because it's the part where you could look at something like this and maybe you're looking at this chart right now and you're like, Mike, this is just, it's all over the place. But somebody else might look at it and say, yeah, you know what, like I see like these finer details. Maybe you're seeing things too that I might not even see either. But it's continuously training that part of us, and then coming up with different rules that can help guide us for these parts of the trade, and how we'll execute and how we'll continue to improve. But to get back on track with getting back into the saddle, right? Getting back into the saddle after being off for a period of time. We talked about different feelings and different emotions and different thoughts that are popping into our head, but a couple of different strategies to get back on track and get back on track right away. The first thing that I've used that's been very helpful is identifying the state when we're at our best. Right, like not like like being in New York, or being in Wisconsin, or being in Scotland, or wherever you happen to be at in the world. I'm not talking about that kind of state. I'm talking about a lot like your mental state, your mental frame of mind, and your physicality and your emotionality. So thinking back to the point where you were at your peak, what does that feel like? What was your environment like? What were you thinking? Think about that. We can get a clear sense of what that was in your mind. Spend some time doing that. And then, well, once you've come up with that, then it's figuring out the different triggers that could get you back into that kind of state. Right? So, sometimes for me, like, and it doesn't have to be something that's ultra complicated, or that it's like, oh, peak state, like, well, what's that? For me, something that I notice is that after I've had some kind of physical exercise, I tend to think and feel a lot better, a lot clearer, a lot more energized, right? And it's not just like, going to the gym in the morning, though. Like, I love doing that, and that's part of my daily routine. Sometimes it's just going out for a walk around the neighborhood for 15, 20 minutes, getting some fresh air and coming back and clearing my head that way, sitting down, and that's something that's putting me into a state that I feel better and ready to go. Sometimes it's getting up from the chair, moving around a little bit, going downstairs, making a fresh cup of coffee, coming back, maybe putting some of the frothed milk in there, like a little milk frother, putting a little bit of cinnamon on there, just like the different things to help me get back into a state. And then it's like, okay, I'm ready for this particular task that I'm going to do. So figuring out the different triggers for ourselves. That's number two. And then number three, now that we're in this state, that's when we want to start to think through what kind of a plan do we want to come up with. Because if we do this out of order, right? Like if we just come in, we start to see the market's back here, the market's ripping, and it's just like, oh my God, like I need to come up with a plan, and we're trying to come up with a plan in a frazzled state, or an excited state, or a fearful state. How good do you think that plan is going to be? Is it going to be a better plan than what we would have come up with when we were in a peak state? A worse plan? Or maybe it's about the same, or who knows? What do you think? Not going to be as good of a plan as when we're in our peak flow state, right? Like it's almost like baking a cake. Like, well, there's certain ingredients that we need, but there's also a certain order of the ingredients that we need, right? Like, well, we can't put the icing on first and then put it into the oven and then throw the eggs in after it comes out, right? Like that's not going to be a very good cake. What we need is put in the ingredients in the right order, and that's why getting into a peak state first is going to help us do. Good morning, Andrew. Um,
Morning.
yeah, we're just talking about getting back into the saddle, um, and we're talking about getting back into the saddle and uh, getting ourselves into a peak state, figuring out the triggers for that state, and then once we're in state, then getting ready to execute and make our plans. And that's something that's worked out. That's something that's worked out well. Uh, for me, it's worked out well for like thousands of people. Like people that I've personally coached, people that I've met in other genres, not just trading, but outside in business, in personal development, and all these different things. Like that's part of how we get ourselves into a peak state, make plan from the peak state, and then it puts us in a far better place to go off and execute. And once we're off the saddle for if we're off the saddle for a couple of days, couple of weeks, well, whatever it is, it's something that helps us get right back into the swing of things. But there's another part of this too, right? There's another part of this. Well, what if we get knocked off the saddle and there's something major that's knocked us off the saddle this time? Something that's changed our lifestyle, right? Like, well, what about then? It could be change of a job. it could be something that happens with our family, or with our friends, or something major that happens. It could be very positive, right? It could be the birth of a new child. It could be maybe we're moving to a new country, right? Like there's some of us here that are in the process of moving from Europe to Canada. Right? Like it's really incredible. New jobs too, um, all different kinds of things that can be life changing. So what happens when those types of things occur? And so I'll give you a personal experience. That happened to me, and hopefully, my story helps you to avoid something similar in from happening to you. But back then, no, it was soon after the birth of my daughter Lily. She just turned 7, and back then, 7 years ago, or more, it 6.5 years ago, like that, my trading was great. The equity curve was moving from the lower left to the upper right, and continuing that path, and just continuing to compound gains, growing the account, getting closer to that point where I was going to, a few years later, be comfortable leaving the day job behind. And I even back then, I thought that I wanted to be doing something similar to what I would be doing here. I didn't completely have the vision of what this would be presently, but I knew I wanted to do something in the trading space. Um, but then after she was born, something happened to my trading. Right, like the equity curve stopped going up from the lower left to the upper right. It started to go sideways. It started to re-enter this boom and bust cycle, right? Like, and rather than moving up like this, how it was, it started to come back and just kind of go up and down, up and down. And it's like, well, what in the heck happened? I thought that I was doing the same routines and executing the same way. I had turned the corner in my trading. I had people around me. I was already, I was the IBD meetup leader at that point. I had plenty of great people around me. I was making friends with people in the industry. Well, what in the heck happened? And of course, what happened, and now looking back all these years later, it's pretty obvious. But at the time, in the moment when I was in the weeds, it wasn't. What happened was, hey, you're a dad, and it's your first time being a dad, and you're staying up late at night. You're not getting much sleep, and you're trying to juggle being a new dad, and working full time, and trading, and running a separate business on the side. This is very different, so your routine, even though like the ingredients are the same, you're still looking at the same kind of stocks and the same kind of setups, and trying to trade with the same kind of position sizing. You're putting the ingredients together in a different order. Right? I'm doing the equivalent of trying to ice the cake first, put it into the oven, and then after it comes out, crack the eggs and put it on top. And I'm wondering, well, what's wrong with this? Well, that's what can happen sometimes. Um, and it didn't occur to me that was happening until about 6 months in. So this boom bust cycle is going on for 6 months, and along with it too, like piles of stress, getting my health, taking a hit too. Like I had ballooned up. I was about maybe 40 pounds heavier than I am right now. Started to get into arguments with Melissa at home, and things were rocky. And no, thankfully, and our relationship is one where we're very supportive of one another, but it came time to where we had to go out, and we actually went for a walk, right? So to have things come full circle, right? We go for this walk, get back into state, right? Like different things that could trigger us. So we go for this walk, and we're talking about, like what's important. And like, well, what do you mean? Well, what's important? Like, yeah, you guys are important, and if we're so important, things need to change, because right now, you're trying to do too many different things, and you're stressed out, and nobody's being helped, right? Like we're getting like this B level version of you, and it's not helping anybody. Like, it's not helping your trading, it's not helping your family, it's not helping the people that you're trying to serve in your community. So something's got to change. Well, you got to get back on track. So it's like, okay, well, what can I? Uh, First, it was hard to hear that at first, right? But a little bit of space, a little bit of time, and it's like, yeah, you know what? You're right. So what do I do? Well, uh, there's a question when we're in a state like that, and we need to get back on track, and we kind of feel stuck in the weeds, that we need to ask ourselves. The question that I ended up asking myself is, who can help me get back on track, right? Like that, not these like earth-shattering questions. Like sometimes it's the simple things that can help get us out of these type of situations. And so I start to think about, like, who can help, like who could really help. And having made some good industry contacts, like the trainers, the life coaches, other people in training. So who could help? And so I reached out to some people, and I started to get my health back on track, right? Like that was one of the first things that happened. I needed to get things sorted out, right? And so we went through a process of seeing, like, okay, taking a step back, assessing what's there, right? So laying out all the different things that I had going on. Let's get clarity on scheduling, of all these different things that I'm trying to do, and not just that, but starting to set priorities as well. And one of the things, especially if what I've seen happen too, if you're somebody that likes to help, and you're somebody that likes to give, the especially if it's to giving to your friends, giving to your family, trying to be supportive. Well, what often happens, and it's such a great quality, but if we're not careful, sometimes, well, what can happen is that we put ourselves last. We put ourselves last, and that's something that started to happen to me too, even back then. And part of what led to all those problems is that I was trying to put everything else first, and I put myself last. And oh, that can work for a little while, but it's not something that's going to be sustainable, because what happens is that, well, we end up becoming depleted. So what I needed to do was start to prioritize different parts of wellness. So getting my health back on track, getting and part of what I did with that, like scheduling, getting back to the gym, right? Like I was somebody previously too, right? Like I ballooned up to over 200 pounds, and that, maybe that doesn't sound like much to you, but I'm a small guy, right? Like I'm not tall. Like I'm like between 5'8", 5'9", and right now, I'm in my 40s. I'm gonna be 43 this year. I feel like I'm in my 20s, right? Like that level of fitness. But it's it's getting the health part back on track. Like I would run marathons at that point, after the putting on the weight and the stress, and all that. The physical fitness went out the window, and I was barely able to run around the block. So getting the health back on track. Then it was getting the nutrition back on track too. I was eating garbage, so getting that part back on track. And so doing things to get ourselves back physically. Then, okay, well, great. Now I'm starting to feel a little bit better. My mind is getting better. I'm taking care of myself. Now I'm able to start taking care of some of the other things. So it was great. Well, what could I do to change up my trading routine? Right, like get it, and everything is interconnected, but there's again, there's a certain order to things that we need to do, and if I just wanted to only focus on my trading routine without taking care of my physical well-being, it wouldn't have worked out too well. So that's why I mentioned that here in first, and how the progression happened. So I'm getting physically fit. Then how am I going to get my trading back? So I needed to start to think through, well, how can I change up my routine to work with a newborn? Right, and take care of these things. Well, what can I do differently? What could I do more efficiently? And for those of you that have heard some of my story before too, like how I got started, and with the IBD meetup group, and how you know uh, that part happened, and how that changed, and how people that were veterans in the group wanted to start to adopt some of what I was doing. Right, it was that part of it. It was figuring out a routine that I could do well and make efficient given my lifestyle. That's the part that when I first found the IBD meetup group and started studying with those guys, and after a year, I was able to come back, show them what I was doing, and doing part time trading while working full time and going to grad school and all these things, that I had done that efficiently, and why they wanted to adopt what I was doing. And it was actually that part that launched me on this path here, like trying to help other people do similar, that I had forgotten at that point. Right, like fast forward to like after Lily was born, I had forgotten that part, and so I needed to revisit that, and revisit how can I go back to that and start to retool. Well, what can I do differently? What can I do in a new and efficient way? Well, what parts of my trading could maybe be outsourced, at least temporarily, right? If I didn't have time to do the kind of research that we do here, and we're going to get into very shortly. But well, what types of research can I do? What parts can I outsource? And so I actually outsourced some of the research and the screening to and took in some of that other types of research from other sources, so that way, at least uh, for that time, 6 months, a year, while I was getting back on track, I was still able to participate, and I was still able to have something that I trusted. So, and there could be a variety of ways, right? Like, if you're going through something similar, right? Like these are some of the things that you might want to think through: your physicality, your emotionality, your nutrition, your health, uh, your lifestyle, what your trading routine. What parts of your routine can you adjust? Are there things that could potentially be outsourced if necessary? Um, and that this, if you're going through that kind of a major life shift, it totally pays to think through these types of things. And you know what? Part of the reason why I created this elite program is so that way you don't have to do it alone. You have a group here that you could go to. You have me that you could go to. You have Stu that you could go to and talk about these things. And we're glad to help you work through it. Like this is my life's work, my life's passion, and why I'm doing this. And so uh, I I hope that this helps you in some way. And um, yeah, that's what I have to say about that. Uh, any thoughts or questions or comments on any of this before we shift gears and talk about market mood?
Mike, just thanks for that. That was really good. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.